Next week, the Labour Party is having its annual conference in Liverpool this year, and before the start of the conference gathering, the leadership of the party will have been decided and ultimately the future for the democracy in Britain. During the summer, we've witnessed a fierce election campaign between the current hard left incumbent, Jeremy Corbyn, and his challenger, Owen Smith, the Welsh MP for Pontypridd, for the leadership of the party. On Saturday, the 24th of September, the future of the heart and the soul of the Labour Party will have been decided. The reason why this party leadership contest is so important is because what is at stake is more than just the leadership of the Labour Party. The real danger is that Corbyn could be re-elected and consolidate his power base. This would effectively mean the takeover by the hard left of a Majesties Opposition whose foreign policy agenda is anti-British and anti-Israel. Social commentator Leo Makinski, who writes for the Daily Telegraph, wrote about Jeremy Corbyn. For Corbyn is not a serious politician. On the contrary, he is an unreconstructed Trotskyite whose views have remained frozen ever since he attended his first demonstration in the late 1960s. If Ed Miliband was the eternal student union activist, Corbyn is the permanent rebellious adolescent. Tom Watson MP, former deputy leader of the party, described how under the leadership of Corbyn, the party has been infiltrated by the hard left, known as the Trotskyites. It's important that we know what the ideology of Trotskyism is to understand the hard left takeover of the Labour Party. Trotskyism is the political and economic ideas of the Russian revolutionary leader Leon Trotsky, who was a member of the Russian Socialist Democratic Party that seized power in the Russian Revolution of October 1917. They were inspired by the teachings of Karl Marx, who advocated the overthrow of the state by the working classes to control the means of production. Leon Trotsky believed that socialism should be established throughout the world by continuing the revolution. He found himself at odds with Stalin, who had succeeded the revolutionary leader Lenin, because Stalin believed that the Soviet Union needed to be strengthened before the revolution should be spread throughout the world. Therefore, a Trotskyite is someone who believes in the overthrow of the state and that the working classes should control the financial resources from the rich and create a so-called fair and equal society. We know from the history of the Russian Revolution that it led to a totalitarian regime that led to the deaths of millions of innocent people, either through Stalin's paranoia or through severe famines. Jeremy Corbyn has created an organisation within his leadership called Momentum that is run by Trotskyites and Marxists who want to use it as a vehicle to take over the control of the Labour Party. If they succeed, this will mean the end of the Labour Party, as they would no longer appeal to ordinary voters except for an extreme tiny minority. In the Middle East report this week, I interviewed Michael McCann, Director of Israel-Britain Alliance and former Labour MP. He gives a real insight into how, under the leadership of Ed Miliband and Labour's defeat in the general election in 2015, led to the election of Corbyn as party leader. Here is an extract of the interview. I just want to read out an email we got from Owen Smith's office, thanks to our faithful viewer Frank, who emailed me a response to his question, which was, what is Owen Smith's position regarding Israel? And this is what he said. So he says, "Dear Frank, please find a response from Owen below. Thank you for your inquiry about Israel and Palestine. Under my leadership, peace and security in the Middle East will be one of my most important foreign policy objectives for the Labour Party. I'm committed to a permanent, comprehensive peace settlement based on a two-state solution, resulting in a secure Israel alongside a viable state of Palestine. All sides must avoid taking action that could make peace harder to achieve. That means an end to blockade and occupation, an end to rockets and terror attacks. Under my leadership, Labour will continue to oppose the isolation of Israel. No one should question Israel's right to exist. That threat of boycotts is wrong. The response, and I do not believe this helps any advance with the peace process. Only a negotiated peace deal will bring the justice and security both sides deserve. This is why the international community must now take concrete steps to strengthen moderate Palestinian opinion, including Palestinian recognition at the UN. To bit concerned with that one. I do not believe the threat of boycotts help advance the peace. Best wishes, Owen. What was your response to that statement made on his position regarding Israel and the Palestinian conflict?
Most of it is sensible and good, but there's three issues I would pick up. Blockade and occupation, and when he talked about recognising Palestine at the UN.
Absolutely.
It demonstrates that he has got no concept of the geopolitical situation in the area. In terms of recognition of Palestine, that should be a prize, a huge prize, at the end of a difficult negotiation which will involve compromise on both sides, which will lead to the resolution of refugees, borders, security, and, crucially, Jerusalem. It's not a prize you give before any of those issues are resolved, so I disagree with them there. And in terms of occupation and blockades, well, dead simple. And if Hamas stop firing rockets and try to acquire ammunition, guns, and the most sophisticated weaponry imaginable in order to fire it at innocent Israelis, then we won't have there won't be any blockade, or there won't be a need for a blockade. And in terms of occupation, you know, it's a term that's used very glibly by a lot of politicians, but I think it demonstrates that they don't understand the history. From 1947, when two states were proposed by the UN, only one side took up the offer, the Jewish people, to create the State of Israel, and then were immediately attacked. And then from 1948 to 1967, and everybody knows the history from Revelation TV viewers, it was Jordan and Egypt that refused to give the Palestinians a state. So learn your history, understand the geopolitics of the situation, and don't write notes which contain your ideas for how to move forward, which are incomplete and quite frankly don't make much sense.
It was the aftermath of the EU referendum vote after Corbyn's lacklustre campaign on behalf of the Remain campaign back in June of 2016 that Corbyn came under incredible pressure to resign, as the vast majority of his shadow cabinet resigned. He lost the support of the Parliamentary Labour Party by losing a vote of no confidence in his leadership by 172 to 40 votes. Angela Eagle MP showed real courage and conviction to make a leadership challenge against Corbyn, but under pressure from other Labour MPs, she stood down to allow Owen Smith MP to challenge Corbyn unopposed and prevent the moderate vote from being split, and thus giving Smith a greater chance to defeat Corbyn. The leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, as leader of the Labour Party, has been plagued with accusations of anti-Semitism and anti-Israel sentiments that he made the British Jewish community feel incredibly uneasy and concerned about the direction the party is heading in. In addition to this, we have seen high-profile suspensions of the former Mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, MPs and party activists over highly offensive anti-Semitic and anti-Israel comments and social media postings. On the 29th of April 2016, under pressure to do something about the growing problem of anti-Semitism, Corbyn set up an inquiry to investigate the extent of anti-Semitism in the party. He appointed Shami Chakrabarti, the director of Liberty, the same day she joined the party, thus making it a nonsense of it being an independent inquiry. To make matters worse, Chakrabarti announced that the inquiry would expand to include other forms of racism and Islamophobia within the party. The main focus of the inquiry, anti-Semitism, had been sidelined. The only inquiry took a few weeks and was published on the 30th of June, despite the fact that Jewish organisations like the Board of Deputies, the Community Service Trust and the Jewish Leadership Council contributed to the inquiry. It turned out to be a whitewash, as the opening words of the report stated that the Labour Party is not overrun by anti-Semitism, Islamophobia or other forms of racism. On the 4th of July, a few days after the publication of the inquiry, Jeremy Corbyn was forced to address the House of Commons Home Affairs Committee, where chairman of that committee, Keith Vaz, said, "Many regard this inquiry as a whitewash because it doesn't contain any facts or figures. It doesn't take any evidence from some of the principal people accused of anti-Semitism. Why do you think that this was relevant when it doesn't reach any conclusions?" The problem of anti-Semitism within the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership has been one of the main issues that has dominated the leadership debate, with Owen Smith defending Jewish Labour MPs and attacking Corbyn on his views on Israel and Zionism.
Saul Miller. Where is Saul Miller? There. Here you are, good.
The Jewish community is very worried about the state of the Labour Party at the moment. What is your plan to root out anti-Semitism?
Just explain a bit what you mean.
What I mean is that most Jews currently don't feel safe on the streets, and especially within the Labour Party there's been anti-Semitic reports, and they've really not been knuckling down to try and eliminate that.
Owen Smith?
Well, the young man is right, unfortunately. Jewish community in this country has traditionally looked to Labour to represent it. We've been the party that they felt, I think, closest to their views. Unfortunately, right now it's about 8% of the Jewish community that are voting Labour, and that's a big decline in recent months and years. We have seen anti-Semitism in our party. I don't think we've been strong enough in speaking out against that, and I think that has diminished our capacity to speak out against it in the country. Because if it isn't the Labour Party that's speaking against racism and anti-Semitism and being heard in Britain, nobody else is going to do it. So the answer has to be, we've got to have zero tolerance for it in the Labour Party. We've got to make sure that anybody who's found guilty of anti-Semitism or any racism has no place in the Labour Party.
Any difference between you and your opponent on this?
Yes, because I think Jeremy has not been strong enough in speaking out against it. I think the report that he commissioned from Shami Chakrabarti isn't viewed by the Jewish community as being adequate, isn't thought to have taken the issue properly, seriously, and I think we need a new review and a much more detailed, much higher-powered review to look at the problem that we've got in Labour and to deal with it.
When I became leader, I understood that a number of people had been suspended from the party before I became leader. I also received reports of anti-Semitic remarks and behaviour at certain party events, and I'm obviously very well aware of the rise of anti-Semitism, not just in Britain, but across Europe. Point one, anti-Semitism is absolutely and totally unacceptable anywhere in our society, anywhere in our party, anywhere in our world.
Yes, sir.
Point, if I may, David,
yes,
the second point is that I did ask Shami Chakrabarti, the former director of Liberty, to undertake an investigation. I asked her to do it quite quickly because I wanted to be in a position to put a statement to our national executive and put proposals to our conference on how we deal with issues of suspension, how we deal with anti-Semitism in the party. She produced that report. We launched that report. Obviously, it should be subject to review at a later stage to see how it's getting on.
Okay.
But we have to say to everyone in the Labour Party, this is a safe place to be. This is a welcoming party to be, of people of all faiths, of all religions, to come into our party and work together to achieve the kind of social justice that we want.
So, when you say that, you had your own Labour MP, Ruth Smith, saying the fact is that you failed to intervene, and it's final proof when she was heckled at the meeting. Final proof for me that you are unfit to lead and that a Labour Party under your stewardship can't be a safe space for British Jews.
I'm very disappointed, Ruth would say that. She was herself subject to some appalling abuse earlier this week and indeed last weekend, and I send my support and sympathy and solidarity to her, as I would to anybody else who's subject to any kind of abuse. I do not accept any kind of racist abuse in any form, in any forum.
Very briefly.
Ruth Smith has been subject to abuse. Ruth is currently being protected by the police. So serious is the abuse that she's been subject to. And the point she makes, and the point that other members of the Jewish community have made, is that under Jeremy's leadership, we've seen people coming into the Labour Party from the hard left of politics who are bringing into our party anti-Semitic attitudes, and that cannot be acceptable.
Who are you talking about?
I think there are people on the far left of the Labour Party who are flooding into our party, and that's their word, not mine. That's their word, not mine. The AWL, the Alliance for Workers' Liberty, only a couple of weeks ago said, let's flood into the Labour Party. There are other people who've come from hard left groups who've come into Labour. Just the other day, I saw a tweet. Let me finish this, Jeremy. I saw a tweet from Jeremy's, well, purporting to be from Jeremy's team to members of a hard left group saying, you are welcome to come to Jeremy's rallies, just leave the flags and banners at home. And the reason for that was we've seen some of those flags and banners at some of Jeremy's rallies. And unfortunately, some of those people are bringing an attitude into our party from the hard left that I don't think is welcome.
When you say the hard left, I mean, Labour Party is a left-wing party. Are you saying these people should not be allowed in and he's not kicking them out?
I think there are people who've come from the AWL and the SWP and some of the other hard left groups that either have not been part of the Labour Party or even been prescribed by the Labour Party as not being members of our party and not being able to join. And some of those people are, it's all over their websites, anybody can look it up, advocating joining the Labour Party in order to support Jeremy and in order to control the Labour Party.
Let me get it absolutely clear. Are you saying he's allowing it or encouraging it because it gives support to his policies?
I think some of the people around Jeremy are absolutely encouraging it. Of that, there is no doubt.
I'm sure we can agree on two things. Firstly, that all of us together are going to make sure that we defeat any aspects of anti-Semitism within our party and within our society. On that, I'm sure we're absolutely agreed. Yeah?
We are agreed, but
Good.
I'm not sure you're entirely committed to it, Jeremy.
Owen, that is a pretty unfair, let's say unfair way of saying it. I have spent my life opposing racism in any form, as have you. And as have you.
And many people on the left. And many people on the left. And many people on the hard left of our party who've been alongside you over many years do associate anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist, anti-Israel perspectives, and that is unfortunately colouring some of the dialogue in our party.
Let's be clear.
And I don't think you've been strong enough in speaking out against that and distancing yourself from it.
We are very clear that we're all opposed to anti-Semitism. We're all opposed to any form of racism in our society. That's the very core of what our party is about. It's the statement I put to the National Executive, which was unanimously agreed at its meeting in May.
Well, some of your Jewish Labour MPs do not feel that the Labour Party under your leadership is a safe place, Jeremy.
I support them in their right to their identity and what they're saying. I support them when they're being abused, just as I would support anybody else who's suffering any kind of racism. Just as you would as well.
They don't feel support.
Let me just go back to the young man who asked the question in the first place, if we can. What's your comment on what you
My comment is, Jeremy says he's anti-racism, yet he supports groups such as Hamas, who call for the death of all Jews.
The great danger is that Jeremy Corbyn will be re-elected as leader of the Labour Party, despite the valiant effort of Owen Smith, and this will lead to a farcical situation where the hard left now dominates the grassroots and the parliamentary Labour Party will oppose Corbyn's victory. This could lead to a breakaway within the party and the hard left extremists in control of the Labour Party who hold deeply anti-Israel views that verge on being anti-Semitic. The Labour Party will attract more sinister extremists to the party that seek the destruction of our democracy and our way of life. British democracy will be weaker because we will no longer have an effective opposition that will hold Theresa May's Conservative government to account, vital for the functioning of the parliamentary system. Jesus said in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 3, verse 25, "And if a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand." This should act as a warning to the Labour Party if Jeremy Corbyn is re-elected as the leader of the Labour Party.